Okay, welcome everybody to the 3 p.m. work session of the City Council, July 16th, 2024. Welcome to those online. All council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Blair, Councilmember Chirburka, and Vice Chair White. I do think Councilmember Blair and Chirburka will be joining us shortly. I don't know if anyone's online at this point. Nope. Okay, so we'll see them soon, but we've got a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. First up on our agenda, actually, before we jump into that, do we want to, Janine, say anything about the coins at all, or maybe at the end for council business, talk a little bit about that? Okay. So first up on the agenda, Lori Buckley is here, our arts administrator for CED, to talk about the 2024-2025 proposed art grant awards. Arts grant awards. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Ritchie and council members for having me here today. Wait, am I driving this? You're driving this.
You got it. I'm just
Okay.
getting the shirt on.
Okay.
All yours.
Okay, so I am here today to present you proposed resolution 2024-6, which is the fiscal year 25 arts grants recommendations. They come from the Arts Advisory Committee. Your role, where hit the space bar? Yes, there we go. Your role in this process is to determine that the value of the projects and programming that are supported by this grants equal the value that the public receives from the money that we're putting into this program. The arts grants are reviewed in a rigorous scoring process by the Arts Advisory Committee. And here are some of the review criteria that we go over when we're looking at each grant application. We look at the quality of the artistic mission and the programs or project that is being offered to the community. We look at the number of creatives that are being supported as also with the number of community members that are served. Now that number isn't always high. It can be a smaller number because it is directly benefiting an underserved population, which would be a smaller number of populations served by the grant. So we have to be very careful at how we review these. We make sure that the project or programming is inclusive for all Ogden residents. We make sure the application shows a strong ability, the applicant shows a strong ability or a pass to be able to pull off the project or programming in a successful manner. We have to make sure they have a strong marketing plan, a strong and balanced budget, and that the project or programming aligns with the Ogden City Master Plan for Arts and Culture. So this year, 31 grant applications were received. And after the scoring process and the review process, the Arts Advisory Committee is recommending that 27 of those grant applicants be funded. That would be 11 general support applications. Those 11 support applications would total $84,000 in funding. And then there are 16 applications for project support that merit funding, and that would total $66,000 for a total of 27 applications, and that would equal $150,000 this year for grant funding. Here's a 2-year comparison just so you can have an idea, and especially for you new council members. Last year, we received 34 applications for a total amount of $256,000 in ask, and 29 of those applications were funded in a total of almost $60,000. We did have a little bit of money left over last year from 2023 that rolled over, and that's why that amount is different. This year we have 31 applications. We had $248,000 in ask, and we're funding 27 applications that total $150,000. So here are the grants being recommended. Chamber Orchestra Ogden. I gotta get my notes just so in case you have any questions. Chamber Orchestra Ogden is a music performance group. This general support grant would support their season of performances throughout the year. Eccles Community Arts Center, this supports their regular programming, which is exhibitions, their education program, the art contest that they do with the high schools, and just all the general programming they do. I think they do some dance classes and things at the center. Good Company Theater, this supports their season of performances for fiscal year 24 and 25. Imagine Ballet Theater, this grant would support they do a lot of public outreach activities in the local schools, performances, and then it would support their public performances like the Nutcracker that's held every Christmas season. The Shaw Gallery, this grant supports the programming that they produce up there at Weber State. Is a contemporary arts gallery, so it supports their exhibitions, their artist talk and lecture series, and the programming that they produce at the Dumpke Arts Plaza for the Ogden community. Next ensemble is a musician group, and this program produces 5 concerts throughout Ogden and also outreach activities in local Title I schools. The Ogden Contemporary Arts has quite a bit of programming, so they do their free public art experiences within the gallery, First Friday art show activities, the Artists in Residence program, their Artist Factory with youth programs, and they have youth art classes, and then also community events like their Oka Block Party. OFOM, or Ogden Friends of Acoustic Music, this grant will support, of course, their Ogden Music Festival that they produce every year, but they also do programming so we have 2 Dia de los Muertos events in Ogden. We have one that is produced at Ben Lomond High School and one that's produced at Union Station. This is for the Ben Lomond High School programming. So they do that, the music festival, they have youth outreach, and they have a really cool program called the Will and Way Youth Instrument Lending Library, where youth who are looking to learn violin or guitar or banjo or whatever, they actually can check out instruments to take lessons for those families that can't afford to purchase an instrument. On Stage Ogden, this is for their season of 27 performances that will be held at the Monarch or Peary's Egyptian Theater, their community engagement program, and the workshops and field trip performances that they produce. And then Treehouse Children's Museum. Of course, we all know that and it's known and loved what they do, the programming they do for the children here in the community. It supports their participate programming at Art Garden, their school tour experiences, the summer workshops, and their outreach activities. Weber State String Project is, especially for you new council members, it is a youth education program, and often called a masterclass. Weber State music students help teach this. Includes classes, free public concerts, and a 2-week summer intensive music workshop. And then they actually are doing instrument repairs this year. So those are the 11 general support that were being recommended. And so project support, we have 16 of them. Ninth Muse Academy of Art actually is writing for a project. They do produce art lessons and art classes that you can take from them, but they are producing the 4th annual Ogden Chalk Walk this year, and it's a community event where emerging artists can create chalk murals on 25th Street. Our next one is Culture and Crafts. So this is the new organization that is taking over. LUPEC has done it for a couple of years, but Culture and Craft is taking over the production of the Dia de los Muertos Festival at Union Station. So this will support that event, and it will help them with supplies, artist fees, and marketing efforts for that event for the community. Where am I? Do I need to change page? No, I'm on the same page. Okay, Ogden Concert. No, where am I? Happy Magpie Book and Quill. So this is a really cool grant that actually supports the literary community. Happy Magpie started a writer in residence program. And so writers will come in and they will create a free to the public, like either writers lessons, a craft talk, or a workshop that the community can participate. And then they actually are going to produce, each one is required to produce an article or a blog that will be compiled together into a book or on a website. Kai and Lisa Howells produced the LQ zine. This grant would support 2 issues of the LQ zine, which is a full color art publication featuring LGBTQ plus creative community members, and it is produced for a general public audience. Let's see, Ogden Concert Band. This is a non-professional group of musicians, up to 60 musicians that participate with this band, and they do 2 free family-friendly concert band performances at the Ogden High School auditorium. And then Ogden Nature Center is asking for money to help support their Earth Day celebration. And this money goes towards their visual and performing art demonstrations, the art activities, live performances, and they also have a youth art day contest that quite a few students participate with, and then the artwork is displayed. I don't remember the name of the building, but it's the far back building, and it's all over the walls. The art that comes in on that day, it's really fun to go look at. The Ogden School Foundation, every year we support this. It helps them produce the Ogden School District Festival of the Arts. And about 1,500 school children participate this and submit drawings or paintings and to this. And then those artworks are then displayed at the Echoes Community Arts Center and at Union Station. And this is a new application this year, the Ogden Shakespeare Festival. They are producing As You Like It by William Shakespeare, actually this weekend, July 19th through the 21st. And so this is kind of our first Shakespearean type application. I don't think we've had anything that I can think of in the past even 10 years. So this is a new thing for us, and it will be this weekend. So if you like Shakespeare, you should go check it out. Railtown Readings, which is next page here. This is a local reading series. It's held at the Weber County Library, and it features local writers and authors, but it also brings in published authors from the western half of the United States to do public readings and book signings events at the library. And then Samantha Killinen is a sculptor who, just a little backstory on this one. When they ripped out the trolley rail lines of 25th Street, several of those pieces were retained and saved. And Weber State University held an open to the public design contest to design those sculpture pieces into a sculpture that will be placed in the Nine Rails Creative District. And Samantha Killinen actually won that design contest. And now she's looking for grant money to help produce the sculpture itself, and then that will be installed in the Nine Rails Creative District. Banyan Collective. This is to support Van Sessions, and if you've ever been to First Friday Art Show, you would know what Van Session is in the Monarch. It's the free live audience music and video podcast series that you produce. It runs year-round on every First Friday Art Show, so it supports local musicians and bands and groups that perform during First Friday Art Stroll. The Boys and Girls Club. This grant supports their Create at the Club program. It's an after-school and summer arts program that features free art classes and free music lessons for the children that participate in the Boys and Girls Club programming. And then Tribal Love Dancer is, this supports the choreographic music and dance performances. She specializes in traditional African dance and music styles. And she does performances in local schools. She does performances at Dia de los Muertos, Pride, the Weber County Library, and a lot of other places, senior centers, kind of all around Ogden. Utah Neighborhood Connection is a new grant this year, and they're getting going on a new year-round after-school arts program that is focused on junior high students, grades 7th through 9th. And it will offer visual arts classes, music lessons, sometimes cultural field trips, and more. And then Weber County Community Foundation. This grant helps support the Excellence in the Community series, which is this year will include 8 free public concerts that will be held at Perry's Egyptian Theater. And these are often local musical groups, sometimes from Salt Lake, but local musical performance groups there at Perry's Egyptian. And then last but not least, we have Youth Impact. And this grant supports their arts programming for their youth, and it includes ballet folklorico lessons, pottery, stained glass, murals, jewelry making. They have a whole list, guitar making, photography, filmmaking, all kinds of stuff those students can take lessons in. And so that is the total of all of our project supports. That's 16 grants, totaling $66,000. So here we have a chart just so we can kind of look at, because it was asked that I explain the difference between the 40-60 split that we have. And so in ordinance, it says that subject to your approval, about 40%, up to 40% can be approved for general support. And that means the remaining 60% goes to project support. So where this comes from, in 2015, we used to have, from there backwards, we used to have developmental support grants. So we had three. We had general support, project, and development support, because we're trying to build up a strong base of arts-based organizations in Ogden to produce programming for the community. And then in 2015, the ordinance was changed to streamline it into general and project, and the project support then became it has two functions: to produce one-time projects or one-off projects, but also to help develop these small organizations who are working their way up to a nonprofit status to be able to produce programming. And so this fluctuates, the applications that come in year to year. Sometimes we get a lot of good, strong projects, and sometimes we don't. And so that, as you can see from this chart, our funding, we've hit that 40-60 split 4 times in the last 10 years. In 2015, 16, and 17, they were definitely heavier on the general support side. In 2019, it was way heavier on the project support side. So it's really hard for us to, especially with the limited dollar amount fund, to get that exact 40-60 split. And this year, I don't know if it's because of the economy, but we heard a lot, the Arts Advisory Committee and the Arts Committee in general heard a lot about it was difficult for them to find support with grants. Grant money went down, their foundational support went down, donations, and they do fundraising events, and the economy, it's hard, and so they got a lot less money. And so, I mean, the little bit, the 16% more that we're asking to send to them probably doesn't help a lot, but it is a little bit of help, for the organizations that we have built up through project support through the years, but we still need to ensure that we're supporting them so that we don't lose these really treasured arts organizations that are producing stuff for the Ogden community. So it is a swing, and it can change from year to year. Sometimes you don't get very many good project support applications, so it's really hard to give 60% of the funding to that side and only 40 to the general support side. So is there any questions on that?
Lori, I was just going to ask you, do you think we need to look at the ordinance and maybe make some changes?
I think so, because I actually pulled it up and I never realized that it's the way it's written makes it sound like we can only give up to 40%. And I don't think that actually is the best route, because it is an application-based program and you never know what you're going to get from year to year. And so we need to be able to be a little bit more flexible on this.
I was going to say, Councilmember Chaburk is online, but she's here. That's what I can say. If anyone has questions, let's start with her. But I think Dave had a question as well, but no. Okay.
Okay. Well, so that explains that variance. Oops, sorry. I'm going to get off of the page we're on from the 40-60 split, but it is definitely, year to year can vary very differently depending on the applications that we receive. So that pretty much sums up what we're looking at. We're looking at $150,000, 84 to general and 66 to project. And we do have plenty of really strong projects this year. It's not like we're losing out on anything by giving a little bit money for more to general support. So that is all I have for you today. Do you have questions about any of the applications or? Yes.
Yeah, my question is, if you go back a few charts, you
Yes.
had the split and it showed the requested project amount and then the actual award amount that you were going to give, and then there's a percentage. It's
Oh, okay. Was it
that
here?
right there. And there's like 3 of those charts in a row.
Mhm,
So over on in the second column, it says percentage of annual budget.
mhm.
Is that budget by project? Because some of those, that can't be right for
So
some.
this is only on general support, not on project support. So general support can't ask for more than 15% of their annual budget. So that ensures they have to report on what their annual budget was the previous year, and then their ask for general support can't be more than 15% of their annual budget year to year, if that makes sense.
So the percentage that you're looking at, the annual budget, that, like the top one is the chamber orchestra.
Yeah,
Ogden, that's
so their
15%.
ask, they asked for $8,000. $8,000 is 13% of their annual budget.
Annual budget.
And so they're being recommended for $6,000,
Right.
just because we don't have enough money to fully, fund all of these, but that's what that number is. So like Echoes Community Arts Center, so that helps you have an idea. Their $10,000 ask is only 2% of their annual budget. So when you look at these numbers, and if there's a higher number, it usually means they have a smaller annual budget. So that number becomes bigger.
I'm familiar with some of those organizations,
Mhm.
and they must not include some of their entire budget. For instance, I'm going to just pick one out, and I don't know a lot about their budget process, but I know Onstage Ogden,
Mhm.
they have a much higher income than that 1%.
Yeah, I think we just
Because-
round up because it ends up being like 0.0 something percent when you figure it out. Like it is, I should probably put a less than 1%, but it's
Well, that's okay. That's why I asked
Yeah.
the question. Now I understand. So
Okay.
good. Thank you.
okay. Is there any other questions on any of the applications or processes or anything?
Any questions? Okay, I got just a couple of questions maybe. So when we see how some are funded at 100% of their ask and some not at 100%. So what was that determination? How does that
So we
process
have
go?
we have a scoring rubric that we use, and if
Okay.
their score is higher, we try to, so it breaks down to like 95, 85, 75% of their ask, and then that doesn't always work out because we don't have enough money, because you see we have like $250,000 of ask, so I'm $100,000 short when I'm trying to fund these. And so then we have to go in, we look at their budget, we look at who they're serving, and then it's like moving fine numbers around, but we generally put them in categories per their score. And so if they get a higher score on their application, which means that the review panelists go through this and they read everything and they feel like this is a really strong program, their budget is strong, the community they're reaching is very, that's underserved or whatever, then they get a really high score, which puts them in like 90%. I don't really have a 100% bucket. We try to give out 100%, and some of them we do,
Mhm.
but there just isn't enough money to like
Sure.
fully fund them off of that funding rubric. And so we get there and then we wiggle them around trying to get it,
Trying to match it up.
yeah, to
Okay.
the funding that's available.
And then another question, as far as, is there any kind of a post review of after the award's been granted that they use the funds according to that, or haven't,
Yes.
we have a transmittal from the administration about the use of the funds. So what does that look like?
Yes, they all are required to submit a final report.
Okay.
And so their final report actually is full. Who did you serve? How did it go? What was your final budget? Like it's basically the application just a little more simplified. So they have to answer how many people attended, how many youth, how many creatives you paid, what were your costs, what were your expenses. And then you may have been receiving these. They're required to send emails to the mayor and you as council to thank you for the support in the arts. And so those have been coming through the final reporting process, which matched up about this time of year.
Right.
And so that's where
I
those
think
are
there was some
coming from.
confusion where we got some of those and we're like, wait, I don't think we had rewarded any grants, but it was for
That's
last
from
year.
last year's
Yeah,
cycle. Yeah, we used
makes
to,
sense.
actually, they used to come in person and then it would make your public
Our meeting was much
meeting
longer,
very
yeah.
long. So
Yeah.
we had them start sending emails.
Yeah.
It's a little easier.
No, I appreciate that. Okay.
So
So this comes to us as a council. Well, we've already designated a public hearing August 6th. And so we'll hear the public hearing and consideration of these in that meeting.
And I was just going to say, the council has not been receiving those after final reports. I don't know if you're interested in seeing those. I'm sure that the administration would be happy to
happy
share
to
those.
provide them
As
if
much
you would
as,
like
yeah.
to review them.
What's the council's thought on that? I don't know. I think as long as if they're I trust the committee for sure. Maybe if there's something that's an outlier to that, maybe that might be appropriate to share with the council, but
Yeah, and it's numbers and
yeah,
information and
yeah.
stuff that we collect. And I use those numbers when I'm writing for outside grants for our, ACE programming and stuff,
Yeah.
which is very helpful for what we're producing. And so
Perfect.
we do report those numbers to you. We do an ACE annual report, and the grant amounts are reported in there. So, but I'm always happy to share those final reports. Just a lot of reading.
No, I know. I think we trust you there on that. So
I have one other question.
Councilman Myers.
Do you have the grant applications in your office? Are they online? How do you find them?
It's all run through an online process. We used to do them. We've gone through a lot of variations of this, trying to make it the most accessible. They were Word documents, then they were PDF fillable documents. We now have them on an online application process. They log in, their application stays there, it saves their work. And if they return and apply again, they can bring, basic information into their new application, the final reporting's all in there, all the forms they need, the contracting, all that stuff is all in one software process. And it's actually helped quite a bit, because we were always having people that didn't, if you're a little like word processing not savvy, or you can't do fillable PDFs, doesn't work with your computer, we were always having problems with people being unable to, they have a lot of problems with the application process. But this is just, it opens up, you fill in the little boxes, and it all comes back to us online, and our review panel is able to access those in that system on the back end as well. So it streamlines the whole process quite nicely.
And is there a link or?
Yes, when the grants are open, we share this out like crazy during the grant cycle, and we do press releases and all the things. And on the city website, on the arts grants page, is the guidelines are posted there. And then we do workshops as well during the grant cycle to help teach people how to apply for grants and ask questions. We do 2 workshops during that process, and then there's a link that they click on, and it takes them right into the application website.
Thanks.
You bet.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have some presentations on the budget. So first up, Glenn on the salary schedules.
Thanks. I don't have any kind of a presentation, so we sent you all a bunch of information, a lot of spreadsheets and charts and numbers and things like that to help you all with your discussions. What I think we'd like to start with, though, if we could, is to have Justin come up and talk about the Schedule A1. So there's lots of changes on there, lots of things on there, and we thought it would be good to just kind of go through those and why those are on there. There's grants on there, and there's some other things on there. So we thought it would be helpful to have him talk through that. His actual Schedule A1 is probably a little bit better than some of the stuff that I gave. I've said before, they don't let planners deal with money, so mine is not in actual accounting format like his. So, but I thought it'd be helpful for him to go through that. So maybe we can start there, and then you all can have the discussions that you want about salary schedules and the A1 changes after that.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to be here and to go over this. I thought it might be helpful because it's a lot of stuff on the screen. I did make a copy. If you'd like to hand those down for all the council members. Hang on to one of them though. Let's see. There should be some extras going that way. So thanks. So this one is a lot compared to most years when we prepare a Schedule A or Schedule A1 with adjustments that are proposed to this being proposed to the adjustments to the proposed tentative budget that was already adopted. And so what I'll do is I'll go through each fund, and then if you have questions, please let me know as we're going through those. So to begin with, I'll talk about the lower half of the general fund. These are all the adjustments to the wages, and the way that we're reflecting that in this document is by department. And the reason that there's increases and decreases is if, as a refresher, when we created the tentative budget, we went through and programmed what a 4% increase and step increase for employees would cost, programmed that in as if we normally would. And then we took the original proposed 1.8 transfer from BDO, and instead of putting that all in one place in the general fund, we allocated that out by department. And so then once we had the numbers and information from the graph and we plugged that into what the actual proposed budget was, these are the adjustments that would be needed within each department to then make it so that from what is proposed, which is the bring to minimum, the step increases, the bring to closest step, all those things that's been discussed in prior meetings. This is the changes needed within those departments, so those budgets will align with what's projected. It does look a little odd where looks like we're decreasing a lot of departments, but it's only, the main reason is because that 1.8 million we took and placed it within each department, but the needs were higher in other areas with how this study is being implemented than others. And so, for example, in the mayor's and city council's wage accounts, the study doesn't necessarily warrant a lot above the 4% that we'd originally added to those two departments. And so I added more than that from that 1.8 million. And so we're pulling from that to move to where they need to go. So is there any questions about that on what that, and the net of all those, just to make you aware, the net of all those is an increase of about 85,000. So all things said, with what we're projecting to implement the study is from what we had originally proposed in the budget, it's an increase of $85,000 to the general fund to implement what's proposed. So for us taking a shot at what we thought might cost to implement the study, we were pretty close. So I thought that was pretty good. But any questions on that before I move to the other items? Yeah. So the other items in the general fund, it was discussed about reducing down. So we have several new positions that are proposed in the general fund. And so we show a reduction of 105,000. What that is taking out a couple of months worth of estimated amounts for those new positions, just because by the time they're hired, instead of planning a full year, we're planning, I think it's approximately 10 months instead of 12. So that's reducing down wages for that. We're also proposing to remove the BDO transfer with the discussions with the year-end budget opening that we did and looking at using excess fund balance from wages that were not, from wage accounts that were not used the prior year. We're proposing to remove that. So that's the 1.8 million being removed from it. And then the line above that, the use of fund balance. So right now it's a plug number. So I last looked and we have approximately around just over $2 million of unspent wages for fiscal year 24. So depending on what you decide with the property tax increase, if you decide to a lower amount, which right now with the proposed leaving the rate flat, that generates just over $1 million in additional revenue. If you were to lower that, we have room to increase the use of fund balance up to approximately $2 million. So just as for information, I put it in there with the 909,000 so that as of right now, the general fund is balanced. Otherwise, it wouldn't be balanced. And then the other item in there with showing that property tax increase, we had originally proposed increasing it by the 183,000. So you net those two together, and that's what the new proposed increase would be for property taxes, just over $1 million. So any questions on the general fund adjustments? Okay. If Brandon wants to scroll down to the next section starting with some of the enterprise funds. So for the water and sewer, what you'll notice is there's two items that are proposed to be included within, before I talk about those, on all the other enterprise funds and the internal service funds, We've done the same thing with the wages based on how the schedules and budgets with the implementing McGrath compared to what the proposed budget was. You can see the adjustments, whether we were needing more or less. Some funds needed more, like the water fund, we needed quite a bit more. So that's a reflection of the need to be able to implement the study. But then some of the other ones, it was actually less. And the reason that is, again, I don't know if I explained this, when we put the proposed budget together, when we added the 1.8 million to the general fund, we went through each of the enterprise funds, and the percentage that we increased the general fund, so that 1.8 million, whatever percentage that was compared to the rest of the wages already in the general fund, I added that same percentage to all the enterprise funds, not knowing what the McGrath study would come out and tell us. And so again, some of those was enough so we can reduce down. So like sanitary was a little bit higher than what we need, but then water ended up, we needed more to implement the study. And so, so you can see there's increases and decreases for each of those enterprise funds and internal service funds. The other items in water and sanitary is and it's been, I think we've discussed in council work session before about adding extra funds for the help loan program. I had a conversation with Jeremy. He was hoping to be here today to talk. So hopefully I can reflect this, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them back to him and he can share that information with council staff. Jeremy Smith, yes. Yeah, our community development manager. Currently, with the amount of funds that we have in the help program, they're estimating that we can only do about 16 to 18 loans a year. He said within the first, we're only on the 6th, what is it today, the 16th of July, they've already received 23 loan applications since they reopened the program on July 1st. And so what the hope is, some of the applications they involve improvements with some water and sewer, is that if we add some funding available within those enterprise funds that people can use as part of the help loan program, that he's estimating that we could do an additional, with the 300,000, additional 6 sewer loans a year that are specific for sewer, and 2 water loans. And so the hope is that by adding these funds in, that it'll help the help program go further for our citizens. So are there any questions?
Yeah, so are you proposing that we target them for the sewer and water use only?
Yes,
Okay, so that's all they could be used, that additional.
that
money.
portion. So
portion, right.
they can still apply for whatever improvements they're doing. And if there's water and other non-water sewer
Right.
that they're applying for, what we'll do is on the accounting side, we will track how much the portion is related to the water sewer loan that we're giving out, and then how much is not. And so the accounting side will handle that end of it, but it allows it allows them to have more funding available to be able to provide on for this program.
So kind of seems like maybe this program is, there's a greater need than we have funded, than we have anticipated over the years. And I don't know if we've had this discussion before, and so you've probably talked about it with your people.
Mhm.
Have you got any kind of a proposed remedy that how we solve this over a period of time, or how we do this? Because I think this is one of the things that really is a benefit to our citizenry in a big way.
I agree. So in talking to Jeremy, he has some models that he's put together. And if I have the information right, if I was writing down, we were talking on the phone earlier. So because I asked him specifically about these 2 enterprise funds using this amount of money, he said, really what would be ideal is if we could fund this same amount for, not necessarily for this year, next year, and the year after, but maybe it's every other year, but to have 3, if we could do it 3 times to put some money into the program for the enterprise funds. He said that could help increase the amount of loans they're able to do related to water and sewer. But then I asked him, I said, well, what about all the rest of that? How much additional funding would you need? And he said, per his model, over the next 5 years, he would need probably an additional $1.5 million into the program besides the enterprise fund, which would allow them to increase from So right now they're doing 16 to 18. We could get up to 24 with adding these funds. That would put them up closer to 30 or more loans a year if we're able to fund that amount. But it's again, finding those funds to do it. But that's based on his model. That's what he would project is the need.
Do you,
Ju- Can I just clarify real
Sure.
quick? Is that 1.5 million total
Total.
over
So
5
so you
years?
could do
Okay.
500,000 one year, 500,000 a couple years later. Yes. So he said 1.5 total, and that would really put enough funding into the program that it could really increase what they're able to do.
So any exterior use, which includes roofs, sidings, windows, I'm not sure what else, and then sewer and water. Those are the underground things that really aren't seen, but they're certainly exterior.
Right.
Yeah, those furnaces apply?
I'm not sure everything on that's
I don't
involved in
remember
the,
either.
that's applicable.
Since you say that, I kind of wonder if that was included before.
I'm not sure if that one is included. Just recently, some of the qualified expenses did get expanded with that HUD program. So there is a little bit more than just those things. So I think lead paint and some other things, the lead pipes and stuff like that. can be
Anyway, my
included.
question that I was trying to lead into is, do we have do we know how much percentage goes to which kind of that people are asking to do?
I don't off the top of my head right now.
You're not the right guy to ask
yeah.
this to.
But
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'll make a note to ask Jeremy and see if he can provide some of that as far as, because I know that's a question we asked when we came up with these amounts to add for water and sewer. Is that sufficient for what you've been doing in the past? Or is it going to be way too much versus the non-water and sewer loans that you're giving out? And so, but this was a starting point that they recommended.
I just want to clarify, you can use electrical, fire detection, furnace and air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and water heater.
And I also think that these kind of things, I know we did kind of pare it back because we had limited money to people that met a certain income. It would be nice if we could get that to where it was universally available to our citizenry also.
I think there was some adjustments made recently to that, but I'd have to ask Jeremy because
Okay, well,
I
that's all
apologize.
the discussion. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilmember Myers, you had a question?
Yeah, yes, please. So one of the more devastating things that happen to our residents, I'm more familiar with inner city Ogden, is when their sewer line collapses or they have to replace a water line. And if these funds are going so quickly, they're not available in an emergency basis then for those types of things, that they wouldn't be available, correct? Because people are making other applications
Right.
previous to that.
Right.
So, okay, well, I'm just wondering how we can set something up to help residents who have that catastrophic event to be able to afford it.
Do we have Lisa?
Welcome, Lisa.
There is a emergency home repair load program as well. I'm not sure how much off the top of my head is in that. Additionally, we have the insurance provided through our utility Service Pro, I think. So if residents will opt in to participate in that, it's not very much a month, and it would cover the full repair of a sewer line collapse.
That part of Ogden City, is that part of Ogden City utility
It is,
It's
option?
it's a separate bill because it's not an Ogden City program, but we have a provider who provides that insurance coverage. And we do advertise it on our website and provide information in our utility billing for it.
And we've purchased that and it's home serve and it's very affordable and
Yep.
we knew somebody that had used it and they just took care of it.
It's a great program.
Yeah. So I think to.
buy it after you've had the failure.
No.
No.
No. That's
called
the
anti-selection.
limitation. Thank you.
There's a guy that knows. Yeah. But to continue to promote that program, I think would help a lot of our residents because it is very inexpensive. And especially with the aging infrastructure in front of so many of the homes in the older parts of Ogden, it's going to be a big help.
This is a little bit of a tangent, but on that same topic of that insurance program, and I don't know if you know, Lisa, I think some private insurance providers have age limitations where they'll provide a benefit up to a certain amount based on the age of the building. And so, Well, that's what I'm just saying is I wonder if this program has, and Dave, you,
No, there was no amortization.
there's no, so if your home was built in 1920, it's still, you have 100% coverage. If your home was built in 2024, you have, so that was a question that was brought up to me and I wasn't sure the answer to that. So I appreciate that.
Oh,
All right. No, you're good. Those are great questions.
And then with that, so
Yeah.
going back to that help loan, and I should know this and I don't remember with Jeremy's modeling, as loans are being paid back in, those are back available to lend, correct? And
Correct.
so we're just building up this pool of money over the next 5 years to meet the expected demand.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
hope, is if we can build it up so that they're able to lend out more. So right now, the last few years, they've been lending out between 300,000 and 400,000 a year. And so, but yeah, just as it takes time to recoup those as people pay off the loans, this just allows more funding to allow more loans to be given.
Okay.
On the next page, the refuse fund, the adjustment there is relative to the wages. In the airport fund, the adjustments that are being proposed there. And this is also with some of the other funds. You'll notice we've made some proposals to adjust budgets relative to some grants. In the proposed budget for the airport, there's funding for from the FAA to be able to replace equipment. The amount that was originally put in to the budget, the amount when we worked with the FAA and what that actual amount is, it's higher. And so we're proposing to increase that grant amount that's being received. And so that's what's most of that adjustment in the airport fund is, so that they're going to be purchasing some big pieces of equipment that need to be replaced, and most of it's grant funded. So 90% grant funded. The golf fund, the adjustment there is for this wage study. The BDO property management fund, again, it's that with removing the transfer in the general fund, we're also reducing down the use of fund balance and the transfer out of the BDO fund. So at a later point, that'll put excess back into that fund balance. At another point, we'll be able to appropriate those, bring a budget for that. In the storm fund, there's 2 grants as well. And I know I was asked why we're recognizing some of these grants now. Some of this information came to us after we'd already worked through the Schedule A, the tentative budget and the Schedule A. And so with us having till August 6th to adopt this, we thought it was good to go ahead and put this in instead of turning around and having an additional budget opening. Normally we would do that as a budget opening, but where we already had the information, we thought it was, we would include it here. One of those is for, I have the information here. There's an OSG grant. These are all state funds, state grants that we received for some projects that are being needed. And I thought I had the 175,000 is related to a project on the 3300 South, 1325 West for some stormwater retention project that's going on there. And then the 750,000 is the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant Program. We were awarded 750,000 that's going to go towards the Ogden Business Exchange Surf Wave. There is a match required with that, but we're going to use existing CIP funds for that in the storm fund. So we're recognizing both of those we'd like to recognize both of those grants. And then the other adjustment is for wages in the storm fund. In the medical fund, the adjustment there is for wages to implement the McGrath study. In the fleet fund, and this is related to what we'll see in our miscellaneous grants. We have the state homeless mitigation award that we had. The amount that we thought we were going to be receiving is what we had plugged into the mayor's proposed budget. The award ended up coming back just over $1.5 million higher. And so we would like to propose adding that to the Schedule A1, and part of that includes additional funds for wages. So we're going to be adding a couple of temporary full-time positions that will one in fire and one in for police. And then there's also funding for additional equipment for a new fire engine. And so in the fleet fund, we're recognizing some of that new equipment that's going to be purchased with those funds. So that's that 555,000 is recognizing the money that we're getting from the state to be able to purchase new equipment. In the IT fund, same thing, wages, and then also part of the homeless mitigation funds was for some additional IT equipment, some parks, cameras, and some other items. And so we'd like to recognize that there as well.
Can we go back just one,
Yes.
Justin, please? It went by me pretty quick. In fleet and facilities, we got an extra $1 million plus in the form of a grant. And did it fall under the heading of homelessness? And yet we're buying equipment?
So with the fund, so there's the homeless mitigation funding that the state, they've got an amount that they give out to all the cities that have a now I'm drawing a blank on the name, homeless shelter. Thank you. And so they have a formula created. So they've got a pot of money and they've got a formula created based on what you have in your city and how much money will be given out. And so we've been receiving money for I think 4 years now. And so that money has mainly been used for wages. So with the money, we've been able to add 12 police officers and 9 firefighters to our staffing document with those funds. And each year we've gotten a little bit more. This year, based on the formula and how the funds came out, we were able to get a substantial amount more. And in that application, they have to, when they apply for it, they have to say, we're going to use X amount for wages. And then if there's any other equipment or items that they're proposing to need, they include that in there. And so included in it was funding for an ambulance for some to help replace some police vehicles. I think there was some electric bikes for the police department, but then there's also some to help with some repairs at parks, some more park restrooms and things like that. We're going to use some of that funding for that. Also for cameras at some of the parks. So they've got a list in that application of all the different things that they would like to use that money for.
I get it. So it really speaks to the burden that comes to bear upon the city's
That have a shelter.
first responders around homelessness and, yeah, okay. Thanks for the clarification on that.
Yeah.
That helps me.
Yeah.
Makes me sad, but it helps me too.
Yeah. Well, and this is the first year we've been able to
Yeah.
expand it to some of these other where we're going to use some for parks, help with, not just
Yeah.
paying for wages, but using money to help with some fixes at parks that are needed. And so it's going to be really helpful.
Thanks for that.
Costs are a lot worse than
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
On the last page, so again, in the risk fund, the adjustment there is for the McGrath study. And then the miscellaneous grants, again, most of that is all related to the increase to the funding that we're receiving from the state for the homeless mitigation. So there's a lot of lines there. It's just putting it where in the right bucket it needs to be in, whether it's for wages or equipment. But that total amount is just over 1.5 million to increase for wages and equipment from the state. So the total change for all of these, you'll see at the bottom there, is just over 2.1 million is the adjustment as of right now. That was a lot. Are there any additional questions that I can answer?
You made reference to an Ogden business surf, and I didn't get to jot down the last part. But it was
Surf
under the tentative budget for storm and sewer.
It is the
Surf wave.
Ogden Business Exchange Surf Wave.
Yeah, is there some, is that something that is a building project we're working on? or-
It's the project will modify and this is the description from the application. It says the project will modify and derelict the concrete diversion structure on the Weber River to create a standing wave that will be surfable with surfboards, boogie boards, and SUPs. That's the description.
Surf the Ogden River. Hang 10.
All right. Any other questions or clarification or?
Yeah, just one, and you use the term, and this is in the general fund, Justin, you use the term plug number. And this was under the heading of increase of use fund balance. This is unemployed or unused wages, right? That we're rolling forward. And you used a 909,050 number, but you said it's actually something over 2 million.
Yeah. So what we're looking at right now is we could program in up to around $2 million in the general fund as a use of fund balance from unused wages from last fiscal year. I didn't put that in here. I just put in the amount that would be to budget the general fund or to balance the general fund. So it didn't, when I provided this to you, it didn't show as out of balance. So we could make that, we can increase that and it'll allow you flexibility if there's.
So we've got $1 million in the piggy bank.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
good stuff.
So, council members, some of those models that I put together and that information that showed the full 2 million and then what was left over. So I had that conversation with Justin before we started. He put it in sort of the opposite way to make the budget balance. But those models I sent, that shows what the extra is. So that's part of your discussions tonight, is to determine what you want to do, how you want us to prepare the documents, if you have direction for us at this point, with regard to the certified tax rate, or what you want to do with any of these, excess general funds, how you want that appropriated, what you want to do with any of the compensation, with the new proposed positions, any of those. So this would be your chance to have those discussions. Believe it or not, we only have a couple of more work sessions before that meeting on the 6th. And so if you have any direction or any more discussion, this would be your time to do that.
I just wanted to ask a little bit of a clarifying question about the money in the piggy bank. So is it still, is it in those individual accounts of, where the salaries would be, or is it part of like that 20%, cap that we have? That amount that we
The
can
fund
have.
balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I just don't
Yeah.
know what you mean when it's like in the piggy bank. Where is it?
I think that's part of the discussion, and maybe
Okay.
the people with the right letters behind their name can explain it better than I can.
And it may not matter that
but
much.
yeah.
I was just curious because sometimes I think we lose track of it if it's,
Yeah.
I don't really keep it in my brain like, oh, we have this extra $1 million somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah. Don't be mad. Right.
So that's a great question.
I'm excited.
So at the end of each fiscal year, those budgets actually will expire. And so whatever's left will flow back into fund
General fund
balance.
balance. Yeah.
Okay.
And when we do our financials, depending on what those sources are, some of them may be restricted or non-spendable or available, which these would be unrestricted fund balance that can be appropriated. So it would go, it'd be part of that 20%, which would be higher than that, but
Yeah.
And that's just general fund?
General fund.
yes, just
Yeah.
general fund. Yeah, and in the enterprise funds, it'd be similar. It would go into their retained earnings, and it would be if we need to, it would be appropriating use of retained earnings from the enterprise fund perspective.
So Justin, our max is 35%, right, that we're allowed to have. So
Correct.
if that just went in there, what would that number be?
Well, we just finished the fiscal year, and we won't know that number for a few months as we go through the audit. But based on what we're looking at, it'll increase, but I don't think we'll increase that substantially up to, because I think we were low 20s at the end of last year.
Yeah, we were low 20s. but
22?
Like you said, our limit is 35%. If we exceed that 35%, our requirement is to immediately cut that down. And so the appropriation of the $2 million would essentially
Cut that down.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. So I think there's a couple discussion points here when we look at this. So there's a few dials that can be adjusted to meet this. We have the compensation study, which we've all had a chance to review and hear from the experts last week on that, and HR, as far as getting us where we need to be on a benchmark. There is the discussion of the positions, right, where we need to be on those types of things. There's the discussion on the tax rate, whether we've noticed it out at holding the tax rate level, which generates that additional revenue. Is that, what do we do with that? Do we want to adjust that percentage? So these are all things, I don't know if we need to come to a final decision on, but we need to probably have some idea on what the council feels on those ideas. And then, let's see, it seems like there was one other thing in the back of my head as I was going through that list of discussion points.
One other discussion that's always kind of uncomfortable is there's no proposal in there for elected official salary increases. So those would just remain level. But we did put some information in that packet that we sent out to you. What were we gonna have?
I was just gonna say, so there was some discussion about those compensation as the compensations schedules as proposed by McGrath are based on 2023 data. So there was some discussion about whether or not you wanted to make any adjustments to that to make it more current, I guess.
Yeah. And I think so, yeah, well, it prompted the other idea. The other idea was, and this may be just me thinking out loud a little bit on seemed like the overall trend or discussion, I don't know if trend's the right word, but a theme among all the departments is that we have a lot of really amazing employees that work really hard. You know, the hardest working police force, receive more calls per capita or whatever. And so I wonder if there's more of a broader discussion on positions. You know, if we're holding the tax rate, could those funds be used to add positions that haven't been proposed? I know this is really late to the game, but just as a thought to maybe reduce the workload on some of those departments that are burdened. So anyway, so that's some of our discussion, I guess.
So Glenn, did you have any data that you put together with what Bart brought up? Was that last week, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, it just kind of blurs together for me right now. I apologize.
Yeah, so some of the rough numbers that Justin and Lisa put together for a 2% COLA was 950,000 for the general fund and about 1.3 citywide. If we were to add that 2% COLA. So that would obviously, you would need to talk about what you wanted to do with the tax rate. If you did the full, maintaining the rate, that would cover that for the general fund. If you did something like the 3%, like CPI, you probably wouldn't have enough just from the difference between those two things to cover that 950 in the general fund.
So we've kind of got, it seems like we've got funding to meet what I'll refer to as our wish list, right? If it's increase wages and steps, it's add another 2 to catch up for the year lost during the study period. There's funding for the 16 positions. And what am I missing? And if we hold the tax rate at its current certified level, right?
And that it would also include not transferring that BDO.
And not transferring BDO money, we're there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a conversation about, is there anything we don't want? It's at least at first blush for me, is there anything in there that isn't desirable moving forward into the budget year 25?
Yeah, that's another way to look at that for sure.
Or isn't necessary?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just.
Yeah, it's good thinking for sure. And like I say, we don't have to come to a final answer, but I think it's good to know where we kind of are.
Yeah, I think
Or
that'd
we're
be
thinking.
really helpful to open up some further conversation on any particular topic, just to share some points of view.
The other thing I was going to say is I think I heard in the beginning of the, the whole budget cycle that maybe we had concerns about the different positions in particular. And I guess I feel pretty strongly that if we figured out how to do it, that we should add those positions because then it helps to alleviate some of that extra workload too. So now that we've figured it out, I feel like it's okay to keep those positions.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's really up for discussion too.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we've had a lot of discussion about those positions and talked to a lot of the directors and them giving their reasonings why they were requested. And I feel like I'm okay with those positions. It does feel like maybe a little bit heavier than in years past, but I just keep going back to that under that overarching theme of we just have people that are working so hard and fear of burnout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. I'll just give it a me too.
Giving me too. All right. Appreciate it. Councilman Blair.
I'll say I had some heartburn with the positions.
Yeah.
When they were first proposed. And then I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago. And I feel like through this budget process, we've had, in my opinion, a lot of wins. I think the way that we have identified excess payroll funds and how we're gonna move forward with that is a huge win. I think the fact that we have the McGrath study and we had money put aside and we are able and willing to move forward and implement that, bring people to their right range, put people where in the right category where they're supposed to be, and give them the opportunity to move forward is also a huge win. In my own opinion, this is just me. The fact that we didn't have to transfer any money from BDO lease revenue to me was also a huge win. So I feel like we've got these great wins and these great accomplishments that we've done with this budget that it almost seems, in my opinion, it seemed kind of petty to kind of nitpick the positions at this point. I feel like we've done a great job addressing some concerns or some needs moving forward with the budget. And I just feel like we've done an excellent job this year doing that as a whole. And I think moving forward, we're gonna do a staffing study.
Yeah.
A staffing study. I always want to call it something else, but a staffing study, which I think puts us in good position to also be more prepared to add positions in the future.
And
So
address that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good point.
I'm fine with with that moving forward.
Yeah.
On that topic of the staffing and efficiency study, do we know what the timeline is for completion on that?
Yeah, they're still working on the RFP. I think they hope to get it out during the fall, and so we'll probably get it about the same time.
About the
So we've got
same
the
time next year.
staff
Will we
study
see
next
this
year.
next year going into our budget cycle?
Thanks to do a mid-year.
Can you, sorry, Lisa, if you had just come up to the mic and make sure that's okay. Yeah.
You know,
There we go.
It has honestly been uncomfortable for us to put you and the mayor in this situation where we're getting you information at the last minute. Depending on the timeline, maybe we do a mid-year, maybe we set some money aside knowing it's coming up and do a mid-year adjustment so that we have all of the data before we start proposing budgets. So. But we will certainly get back to you after we do an RFP and get some bids back. That's okay.
I just want to add, your uncomfort to me is transparency. And I think it's very good. And so the news this year has been good news because as you brought these numbers that as they've changed and as you've got the concrete hard numbers instead of projections, that's been great news for us this year. So we commend you for it this year.
Well, we lucked out. We honestly lucked out this year because it could have gone the other way.
Well, I just want to say well done.
Thank you.
So between the lines, I'm reading though that we're gonna need more people. And we're gonna find that we're short-staffed in some areas and we're gonna be looking for a greater budget.
And possibly
wages.
overstaffed in other areas. I mean, there may be some efficiency we could obtain and, we'd like to be strategic about how we look at it so we can find those efficiencies as well.
Yep, good.
If I might just chime in a
Yeah.
little bit after all, I do think this has been a little bit unique this year. We've got a new mayor and set a different tone for things. It did cause all of us to kind of tune our radar a little bit more, and our staff has come together in an amazing way.
Yeah.
And the admins, people, the staff there has been very responsive to the concerns that we've shared. And it's been fun to be a part of the process this year. But it has been a a little bit more in depth than past years in my perspective. So,
Okay.
but anyway, thanks to all that participated. You new guys have been very impressive coming into this, this year on your first budget. You guys have been real good. So, attaboy.
We've had great resources, at least I'll speak for me. Sean, you can share your own words, but just great resources to lean on, both in the form of experienced council members, the council staff, and then, as you mentioned, Rich, to have the administration and department directors and management available to share perspectives and insights and understanding has been very helpful to me.
Agreed. Well said.
Very good. All right. Yeah, I think it's been an interesting year and a lot of dialogue, and, not having all the information up front as it's come together, we've, fine-tuned things and straightened it out. So I don't know if that helps as far as narrowing down some of the discussion points. Maybe, do we want to talk a little bit more about the tax rate at this point, or what do we, kind of where everyone's feeling on that? I know we've already I know, but just, yeah.
Yeah, you certainly can. I mean, this is a time for any of that what you want to go into the meeting with on the 6th really is going to determine how that Schedule A1 balances. And of course, when you get to the meeting on the 6th and you want to do something different, as we've pointed out, you're going into it as maintaining the 2023 rate. If you want to do something else, like a CPI closer to a 3%, obviously there's going to be some things that can change. And we can make those adjustments, but how we go into that meeting is going to determine how that Schedule A1 balances.
And I think I would just say, for me personally, looking at that, going through the certified tax rate, it is a process. We have to notice it. We are going to hear from citizens on that. I think we need to be sensitive to all of the factors at play here. Trying to balance the needs of the city versus the ability of our constituents to make their budgets work as well. I know that we've had a water rate increase, and so that's kind of in the back of my mind as we're looking at this. And so I don't know where I'm landing exactly on this. I just feel like I'm kind of a little bit, I've got strong feelings on all sides of it and seeing what makes the most sense. But I do think we need to be aware of that. I don't know if we've heard I think there are a couple other taxing entities that are raising their rates. I don't know if we have a final number on that.
The school district and the sewer district.
School district and sewer, but no one else that that we're aware of at
That
this.
we're aware of, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And
So
they would have given notice, so it'll be those two.
yeah. I do want to say I appreciate, Glenn, you putting together quite a bit of analysis on how that impact would translate to a sample group of homes in all districts. And again, the tax rate is such an interesting situation because valuations, they don't all rise and decrease at the same levels. And so whether or not there's a tax increase or we maintain the rate, some people are going to pay more and less. If we didn't do anything, some people are going to pay more than they paid last year dollars wise, and some people pay less dollars wise. And if we do an increase, some people still will be paying less. And so it's just an interesting and fascinating calculation, which is why I think it's confusing to so many people. So anyway, thoughts on the tax rate, whether we hold the rate, do anything different than that. Councilmember Hire.
I think, over the years that I've been a council member and, seeing the graphs of the way we've had to do it for, 40 years, what it's been. And any year that we have not tried to capture the natural growth in the economy, it just costs us money. And I have a lot of people that call me and really complain that you dirty rotten buggers, why you raise my taxes?
Yep.
And I think they mistake us for the federal government that prints money. And they don't realize that, hey, the things that come from our tax money are direct benefit to the citizens, and they have a cost. We don't have a way to not have them have a cost. And I also think people, they may get a little bit more money here or there and they don't realize it. It's not realized into their budget because it's a small amount here or there, whatever it is. But that CPI tends to be representative of what people are, the comings and goings in people's budgets. And I think it's, you know, we've realized we're adding 16 new positions. We're trying to get everybody up to their expected, their natural rate. It's got a cost, and I think we do need to try to keep that, you know, capture the CPI. That's my thinking.
Yeah.
And I agree. If we don't hold on, we're going backwards. And it's really hard to recover once you've let that gain as a result of natural growth get away from you. Then it's going to be a bigger request going forward, it seems to me. And I'm also desirous of being responsive to the questions and the inquiry we'll get from our taxpaying public. And I wonder if we've ever done anything like this, but to just, and obviously we all have our own language that we'll use in explaining this, but I wonder if there isn't a paper that we could all brainstorm around, or some talking points that could come together with the help of staff that really has us stay on point with what's most salient in responding to one that's concerned about their taxes having, in essence, been increased. So that we're kind of, if we all agree anyway, we could use the talking points or not, but it would be helpful to me, I guess is what I'm saying. If we had a consistent message that was going on.
That thing's years past.
You hit the mic, sorry. Yeah, thanks.
Maybe you could dig it into your file and find some of those, because they don't change.
Those
Reasons are the
yeah.
reasons. They don't change from year to year, really.
Councilmember Myers, did you have a?
Oh, my
comment?
cogs are spinning right now, but I'm a little reserved in what
That's
I want to
okay.
say.
Yeah, that's okay.
So
No,
I-
like, we're not gonna hold anybody to their feet to the fire on this discussion. This is a brainstorming and discussion.
Well, so some of my thoughts are, we have yet to calculate in what Bart proposed. And so how does that affect the tax rate? Because I think my feeling, and I may not be reading the council correctly, but the way that I look at our council currently, that I think the proposed budget is well done, and that we support it, generally speaking, the way that with the modifications that are made. But if we have that additional funding, how does that affect the tax rate? Does it stay level, Glenn? Does it require a change? I think that's a decision that we need to look at and evaluate before we really come together on that, on the final piece. Is that?
Yeah.
Have I stated myself correctly?
Yeah, no, I think you make sense. And yeah, Glenn, if you and your analysis showed sort of various options of holding the rate steady. And yeah, I'll go ahead and let you.
Yeah, so
Glenn.
we've talked about it a little bit, but that maintain the rates. So the kind of green scenario that I've included with everything is that.
I'm reading that. I'm not sure why. That was hard for me.
Give it a few years and it'll be like, okay, yeah.
It's gonna take that
It
long.
takes time, yeah.
If you carried over the full 2 million from the vacancy and turnover and maintain the rate, that would give you a little over $1 million extra dollars, or essentially $1 million to play with. If the 2% COLA is about 950, you're close to that. That would pay for that. So that would be the option that you would need to go with if you wanted to implement that right now.
Yeah. So basically what that means is implementing the McGrath study, the salary study, and recognizing that the study was based on numbers from a year ago. And so we're quote unquote already behind. And by maintaining the rate and using the rest of the vacancy and the turnover fund balance towards wages, we could add an additional 2% of wages or COLA to across the board and basically be maybe a little bit more current with maybe what the peer group in the state is doing in salaries and wages, right?
Do we call that the Blair Amendment?
The Blair. So yeah, and if we didn't do that, the option would be to say, okay, implement the McGrath study, keep the wages as based on what that's proposed. And instead of either allowing the money into vacancy and turnover to roll into fund balance for that, our fund balance percentage, or use that money, but then not do the tax increase or reduce the amount of tax increase based on, whatever that number ends up being. We could do a 3% instead of maintaining the rate or wiping it out altogether. Those are some ideas that could happen.
Can you just review that again, that last part? Because
Yeah.
I was doing well understanding it.
Yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
that last part.
So basically, if we said, okay, let's adopt the budget, do the wage increases based on the study, there are two lines we could move to make that work. So number one is we have the prior year vacancy and turnover budget, which could roll in and cover that need, or not do any kind of a tax increase, right? So I think that's enough it'd be close. We still maybe do a 1%. So we do a 1% tax increase.
Yeah.
It'd be close. So we wouldn't, so from a tax increase standpoint, if we didn't do any tax increase, but used that vacancy and turnover fund balance to roll towards those salaries, we could not do a tax increase and implement the study.
That last part, you're talking about that 2%.
That I'm just talking about just
McGrath.
yeah, the McGrath.
Okay.
Yeah. Just the McGrath. And or we could say, let's leave the vacancy and turnover fund and have that roll to general fund balance for unrestricted use in the future. But then to make up the difference to fund the budget and the study, we would have to do a tax increase of a certain, I don't know we wouldn't have to do the full, or would we have to do the full, maintain the rate? Anyway, we would have to do an increase somewhere between 1% to the maintain the rate. And then that would allow us to implement the budget as it is proposed with the study. I'm looking back there, but roughly, yeah, okay. So those are kind of the mechanisms and tools we have to use to balance the budget.
And if we were to go that direction, no property tax increase and no 2%, we're starting a step behind, or we're perhaps falling a step behind in both areas. We're gonna get off behind with our wage and benefits study. We aren't gonna be fully caught up with today's, as in 2% move us that direction, might not cover it. And we've lost the opportunity to capture a naturally rising certified tax rate. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, the values,
Yeah.
right? The values have increased and maintaining the rate to capture that increased value.
Thank you.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot to think about. And I think you'll all realize that they know more than I do. In the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear a lot also, right?
Mhm.
And so it's hard to say, I want to go in with this in mind, because you're going to hear a lot in the next
Right.
couple of weeks. And so I think just knowing that we can go as little as this, or our ceiling is this, and anything in between is an option.
Yeah.
But wherever we land on, there are consequences also, or decisions that would have to be made in order to implement what we want to implement and where we're at. So I don't think Ken wants us to land on a certain number tonight, but just know that we have options, and in the next couple of weeks, we're going to hear a lot of people either in favor or upset about where their finances are and what they're facing. And that should play a big role in the direction we want to take. So I would just say, think about kind of the direction you want to go, where we want to kind of end up at the end of this budget, and then also kind of what the temperature is that you're hearing from people. And then we kind of just blend those two over the next couple of weeks, because we're going to have more discussion for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a great dialogue, especially because just helping people understand what this actually means, right? You hear certified tax rate, you hear maintain the rate, you hear increase funding, and it can be a little bit overwhelming or even fear inducing. And I know in the past, Janine, I don't know if you've put together a calculator online as what does it mean for me, right? So, because when we calculate property tax, like the whole pie doesn't come to Ogden City. We get, what do we get? 22, 17%. Yeah. So we're getting a small percentage of the pie. So if we're increasing it, it's not on the full pie. It's just on that that's on that slice. And so I think helping people understand that's going to be another big part. And sorry,
Oh, no.
Councilmember.
I just had a couple comments. Number one, I just want to make sure, part of this communication issue is that when we say increasing, then that causes confusing. So make sure that we're talking about maintaining the rate versus doing the increase, because those are two different things in my mind.
Yeah.
But then also I was just going to say the thing that I feel good about, kind of relating to your point, is that we have this variety of things that we can do within a range. But what I really don't like when we get into this situation is when the employees, whether it be public safety or just
thank you.
employees, to feel that they need to come and beg us to make this action because they're not going to be able to pay their rent or their mortgage next week, right? And so I feel really good that at least we've, I think, given them enough comfort that they feel like we're going to take this action. It just might look a little different how we do it. So
yes,
that really, really is troublesome to me when we kind of put the employees in that limelight of like, it's us or them kind of situation. Because I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's very humane in a way, right? To be like, like come and please beg so that we're paying you what you actually deserve, but the study's telling us what you should be paid all along, and we're actually
exactly
behind, right?
Or
And
even
so,
just pitting the property tax owner, property owners
really
against,
uncomfortable to
certainly.
me in the council chambers when we're like having that conversation, because it's really rough. And so, hopefully the employees all across the board feel secure that we're taking the action. Of course, if they want to say thank you, that's wonderful, but I just don't want it to feel like they're in the line of fire, I guess. We're the ones that should be in the line of fire, not them.
Well said, and thank you for making that point. Yeah.
So Chair, we do actually have that calculator live.
Okay,
and it
great.
is on our website. So Brandon, pull it up. So it's on the screen there.
Can we put it up for those online? Just show a demonstration on how to access Brandon, you got that? Okay. He's working on it. So if you're listening online now or later, you can go to the Ogden City website and navigate to this calculator. And so this will be, so how do we get to this page first off, maybe? So Ogden City. All right.
I think yep, there we are. Yeah, so this is just on the council's page. So if you go to the Ogden City homepage under initiatives up here, you just click on budget and that'll bring you here. And then you scroll down. And then here's the calculator with a lot of different information. You do need the taxable values from the county's website, which is linked to here. So you're going to need the two variables to get the calculator. So for example, if your 2023 taxable value of property, which for residents would be 55% of the market value. So let's say 200,000. And let's compare that to the 2024 taxable. Let's say it went up what to 250. Is that reasonable? Too much? About right? So then you get all this information as to how much you paid in taxes, how much is expected to go to Ogden City without an increase, and that's over the year, the difference between your taxes from year to year, and your estimated total tax bill as well. So that's everybody. And so that's just the different information that we have here. So
So
And what
you're looking
percentage-
at,
Yeah, what percentage is that based on?
so, yeah, with the proposed increase, that's the maintaining the rate was what we
Yes.
noticed out. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
And I, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but it doesn't include any increases from the other. We just. assumed-
Correct.
Yeah, we just
That's-
assumed
yeah.
the other ones would stay the same because we didn't know.
We don't know their
what
numbers
to
yet.
put in, yeah.
So that bottom number, the estimated, it says all taxing entities, that's based on what last year's taxing entities
Correct.
charged. Okay. So I think it's a valuable tool, can really help people kind of see where they are on this.
And that's going to be on the higher end too, thinking about that number, maybe. Well, that's about right. I don't know. Close to average.
The average is
Okay. I think that's been a good discussion. Any other thoughts or any more dialogue on this? Okay. Is that, any other questions, Glenn, for the council that you have?
No other questions, but I will just reiterate, and I won't hold it up this time because you can't see it, but in the information that I did send you all, that analysis that shows, if you use that full 2 million from the wage carryover and did maintain the rate, but it does have those different options that kind of shows you what the extra money you have to deal with is. Where the CPI was, 600,000, maintaining the rate was just over $1 million and some of those other scenarios. So if you want to look at what the impact would be that you had talked about, on the different things, on the different options, that was just a way to sort that out to show you what kind of you have to work with if you did those full options.
There's a way to pull that up on the screen so that you can kind of walk us through that, because I
Probably,
capture that.
probably not right now. I haven't sent it to Brandon, so it would take a few minutes. I mean, we certainly could, but it would take a few minutes to get that up there. So,
Yeah.
if you want us to, we're happy to do it. You guys are headed out to the rodeo in a couple of minutes, but yeah, we certainly could.
I guess, is there any other council business? Janine, do you want to talk about these awesome guys here?
Yes, so we got the challenge coins back. We're really happy with them. Hopefully you like them. How many did we order? 1,000? So we ordered 1,000. So we have a lot, but they also, should be treated like they're something special, right? They're not candy. They just give out. So you can have as many as you want, as you think you want to give out. Maybe start with 20 or whatever. And yeah, so we'll just have them here in the office for when you want to pick some up to go to conferences or,
And if we have groups that visit the council, we'll be able to use those as well.
Chair, I have one item.
Okay.
As was mentioned earlier, the Central Weaver Sewer Improvement District is considering a tax increase. And it is required now by state law that the municipalities that represent that entity notify in our meeting of that meeting,
Their meeting.
yeah, truth and taxation meeting. Okay, so we need to, last time there was a truth and taxation, I made a presentation that was maybe more than is required. I kind of felt like it was important that people understand that they're getting a lot of bang for their buck with the sewer district. They're running very efficiently, but it's not really necessary that we do all that. Some of the municipalities are just going to make a communication item and get it taken care of that way. I'm open to whatever you all decide to do. But we needed to probably do that on the 6th also.
Yeah. Good to know.
does the sewer district have some information that
Yeah,
we could put
Yeah,
together?
they've given us some information. They've talked about their miles of pipe and the average flow. They've given us the number of employees and how much gets treated per employee and those kind of things. And, you know, it's the same kind of
Is that just on
information.
their website or?
No,
Oh, can you send it
um,
to me then and we can figure out a way to get it
yeah,
on?
I can do that. I'll tell you what, I'll forward this email I got from Camille. That's got some of this basic information in it, and you guys can figure out how to.
Yeah, and we would probably put that on the July 30th meeting as a
Oh, that's
notification,
right.
if that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah, in
probably,
advance.
So,
yeah. Okay, that sounds good. Let me forward that to you then.
Perfect. Okay, so we have the Pioneer Day coming up next week. We've got the rodeo starting on Friday. We've got a presentation from the council to a couple of legends of the rodeo. So if you're able to attend that, that'd be awesome. Tonight we have the Spencer F. Fox Eccles Pioneer Stadium ribbon cutting and unveiling. And I can tell you, they have been working very hard on that. As I run past that stadium even a month ago, I thought, how in the world are they ever going to get this thing done? But it looks amazing. I drove by there on Sunday and it looks terrific. And so tonight that's going on, the business after hours from the chamber along with the ribbon cutting for this. No meetings for us next week, but we do have the parade on Wednesday for those that are, I think Mavis sent out the rules of the parade for those that are going to be riding in golf carts. Those of us that are doing that. And then our next meeting is the 30th. Anything else we need to clarify on that calendar wise? Friday. Friday 19th. Yep. And
How's that gonna work? Do you know? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I'll have to-
we think that you'll be out in the
Out in the
parade,
dirt, huh?
out on the dirt
Okay.
with a couple of plaques, and we had ordered some belt buckles that won't be here in time, so we'll give them a coin and let them know the belt buckles are coming. And yeah.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if how many of you requested tickets for the 19th. But I did verify with Monty that if you don't want to go to the rodeo, you just want to show up for the presentation, you don't need tickets. We just need to make arrangements with him to have him come and escort
you
you
in.
in to
Yeah.
get you in, so.
Okay. And I feel bad. I'm gonna miss that. I would love to be there on this Friday for that, but we'll catch other rodeos. No? And Bart, you're presenting? Yeah. And we've asked Bart to present that. So I don't know if you'll get a microphone and get to say anything or if it'll just be read over we'll see. Right? We'll find out. Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay, if nothing else, I think we can adjourn. Okay, have a good one.